Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Coffee with the Critters, where we live stream every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern here on the Animal Behavior Center's Facebook page and on our YouTube channel, and soon to be other social media platforms. So, for those of you that may be new, my name is Laura Joseph, owner of the Animal Behavior Center. We are an international educational center where we teach people all over the world how to interact with animals, no matter what the species, with humane, ethical care using the science of behavior known as applied behavior analysis. And you can find out more about what we do on our website, theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. You can also get in touch with me via email, Laura, Lara, at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. And you can also just hit the contact button on our website. So I know a lot of people are excited about today's guest. And this has been in the works for several weeks, even before that. But today I have on, I'm going to go ahead and bring her on, Chrissy Pratt. She is the president of Elephation. And as soon as I get my screen right where I want it, I am going to. So, welcome, Chrissy. Thank you for being on here with us this morning.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited. And before we go any further, I do want to give a shout out to Connie English, and thank her for putting us in touch with each other.
I second that.
Yeah. So I know we have a lot to talk about today. I just want to introduce your work to everybody. I'm going to read your bio here in a second. But when I was looking through your website, I saw that we have a lot in common in our care concern for animals, how they're treated, especially how they're treated under human care. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you and read your bio to everybody. Chrissy Pratt is an animal trainer and behaviorist with over 20 years of experience working with a wide variety of species. She has consulted with elephant organizations around the world, including Save Elephant Foundation and Boon Lats Elephant Sanctuary in Thailand. Wild is is it Wild is Life?
Yes, yeah.
And that's in Zimbabwe.
Yes, yeah.
At the Zimbabwe Elephant Nursery, Stand Up for Elephants in Nepal, and tell me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Is it Pak?
Pake. Yeah. Yeah.
Pake Tiger Reserve in India. Chrissy's career began in marine mammal training, working in Hawaii, Las Vegas, and Turkey after discovering a passion for operant conditioning and positive reinforcement at the New York Aquarium. Chrissy has also worked with primates and horses, deepening her understanding of animal behavior across species. She remains deeply committed to animal welfare and conservation and is grateful to her many mentors, human and animal alike, who have shaped her journey. So welcome, Chrissy Pratt.
Thank you.
So I know we have a couple of photos that I'm going to be showing of your work, but I know we had talked about different topics for today. But I thought this would be a great way to introduce you, get to know your work, show a couple of photos of you in action. And so I guess tell us about how you got into this. I know you said you were a marine mammal trainer. I'll stop.
Well, yeah. My school, my degree is actually in theater. So I was in New York at the time, but was really starting to reconsider. And the only other thing I had ever wanted to do was work with animals. So I started as a volunteer,
We have
and that led to an internship, and then that led to a job. And yeah, I really loved it, and did that for several years. But over time, I did start to, my feelings about animals in captivity started to evolve. And, I started feeling like, um, that there was a better way to put all the skills that I had learned to use. So I had sort of left the marine mammal world because I just couldn't really reconcile keeping them in captivity for the purposes of entertainment only. I know that there are some benefits to keeping them in captivity, but that started to weigh on my mind. And so I floundered around for a little bit there, but as most often in life, it's kind of about who you know. I ended up getting this phone call, from a friend saying, "Oh, um, the Busch Gardens, uh, Tampa is looking for elephant keepers, and they're looking for people with your background because they were training their elephants with positive reinforcement. They weren't looking for traditional elephant handlers." So I did get the opportunity. I jumped at that to work with elephants there. So I was with them for about 2.5 years. And during that time, obviously I just fell in love with elephants, and was doing a lot of kind of research on my own. And at that time, of course, I'm old, so this is about 10 years ago or more, closer to 15 now. Some of these elephant sanctuaries were new, so Boone Lots Elephant Sanctuary was one of them. Elephant Nature Park, some people out there might have heard of these places, but I could see that there was a real need. They wanted to not use traditional elephant training, right? They didn't want to use those brutal methods anymore, which
How
is
did
great.
how did you know that? How did you know that there was this need?
Well, I guess I would just watch all of their any videos that they would post via YouTube. I would read all these blogs about some of the issues that they were having, and a lot of it revolved around the elephants' healthcare. Right? It's great that we don't make them do anything anymore. It's wonderful to give them more freedom, but we do still need their cooperation, right? So when I was working at the zoo in Busch Gardens, that's what we trained. We trained them to voluntarily participate in their medical care. Um, if anybody has pets at home, you know that when you have to take them to the vet, it's stressful for everybody. And it usually involves some kind of restraint, right? Like you need to hold the dog still while you're getting a blood sample or giving an injection. If anybody out there works with horses, this complicates matters quite a bit, right? And then you do that with an elephant, and this compounds everything times 1,000, right? Not only is this stressful, but this can be really, really dangerous if the elephant is scared or upset about what's happening to them. But I had learned at the zoo that if given the opportunity to voluntarily cooperate, it's pretty incredible what these elephants are willing to accept when they know that they don't have to, when they know they have a choice in the matter. So I was watching all this, and in my head, I'm thinking this positive reinforcement could be really, really useful over there on that side of the world. But I didn't know really for sure, right? So I tried contacting some places, and obviously, it's difficult to describe positive reinforcement training, right? Like if you haven't seen it. Um, but there was some interest, but nobody was really willing to just kind of hire me right off the bat, right,
Sure.
from across the world. So I did just decide to take the leap. I sold everything I owned, saved up my money, and thought, okay, I'm just going to go there and see if I can get an opportunity to show people how this works and how much it can help. And so at that time, Elephant Nature Park took a big chance on me And I was
And
there for about 3 years. Yeah.
they are located where?
They're close to Chiang Mai in Thailand.
Okay.
And I got a lot of really valuable experience too, working there. But then it was time to move on, and I was kind of looking around to see if anybody else was interested. And I saw that a lot of facilities were. They were interested in the skills and wanted to have me come, but a lot of these places don't have a ton of money, right?
Yeah.
So they couldn't really afford to pay kind of typical consultation fees. So that's kind of how my nonprofit Elephation was born. So that's what I do now is I will spend 4 to 6 months with each organization, and we trained their elephants, and we also train up the staff. And I offer this service for free to the organizations. So, I will raise money as a nonprofit, and this kind of takes care of my travel and living expenses so that I can offer this service for free.
Great. And that's what you're doing now,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yep.
That's what I'm doing
And
now. Yeah.
and you're here in the States for a little bit and you're getting ready to
Yes,
aren't you?
yes, yeah. So, Elephation is based out of the U.S. And then I'm born and raised in Montana. My folks are still here, so technically this is my permanent address, but I'm only here for a month or two out of the year. So I'll usually schedule. I call them projects, but one or two places a year. Sometimes more if I'm doing any kind of follow up training. But I do just kind of go from one place to the next, and I'll spend, like I said, several months there because it does. With both the elephants and the staff, everybody here knows that building trust takes a long time, right? So sometimes organizations will ask me to come and do workshops and things like that, and I say no. And it's just because again, as everybody here probably knows, positive reinforcement looks kind of simple and cut and dry up front, right? But we all know that it's a lot more complicated than that. Um, and with elephants, a lot of people equate positive reinforcement with food, right?
Mhm.
But what you see, a lot of places will say, "Oh, we use positive reinforcement," but then you go out there and it's a lot of luring and baiting with food or trying to use food as a distraction. And this not only is can be ineffective, right? It doesn't really work. Elephants are smart, but it can be really dangerous, right? If food is our rewards are a tool, and if you're not using these tools correctly, not
Still
only is it
using
not
them
going to
and
work, yeah, it could be dangerous.
pushing the elephants past their comfort level.
Exactly, exactly. And uh, so, there's a big safety component to this. I don't want to get anybody hurt or worse. So I do insist that we take the time. I can't just go up and start training any old elephant. We take some time. They need to get to know you. They need to really kind of understand this new way of working. In the past, learning is stressful for them, right? Because failure means pain. So there's this long process of kind of convincing that elephant that you're safe to fail. It's okay. Um, uh, Positive punishment, a painful consequence is never going to happen here, right? Um, and then you got to slowly earn the trust of the staff, right? Some of these mahouts have been working with elephants for 30 or 40 years. And of course, foreigner comes in, a woman, right? I can't really just go in and say, "Oh, you're
You're doing
doing
it
that
wrong.
wrong. Here, do it this way," right? So there's this long process of kind of earning their trust as well.
Sure, you have to use the science of behavior with the people as well. I know
Exactly.
people are asking questions and we will address them, but, can you explain I watched your TED Talk your TEDx talk. And I did post it somewhere. And if anybody is watching this and your TED talk really hit home, it explained a lot. And explained a lot about the work you do, what you're facing when you're coming into a new organization. So, do you, for those people who may not be familiar, do you want to explain the mahouts, the history of
Yes.
working?
Right, right.
And maybe we'll get into a little bit of statistics of the elephants.
You sure?
So, okay.
Yes. Um, well, I guess we will start with I keep saying traditional elephant training, and I've been in this field for so long, sometimes I accidentally assume that people automatically know what that is. And so, luckily, within the past few years, a lot more awareness has come to light. But really quickly, I'll just explain what it is and why. So, as we all know, elephants are a lot like us, right? They're intelligent. They have self awareness. We have all seen all the documentaries. They are capable of love and empathy and all the wonderful things. But what sometimes people forget is that this means that they're also capable of the darker side of the emotional experience, right? So, people refer to elephants as gentle giants, and I always say to them, yes, they are gentle giants sometimes, right? Just like us. I think of myself as a kind person, but not 100% of the time. So just like us, they get angry, they get scared, they get jealous, they are capable of getting like annoyed and frustrated. But the problem is they are ginormous, right? They weigh 8 to 10,000 pounds. They are unbelievably powerful. So when they're angry or when they're scared, if they're panicking, it's really dangerous. And it is considered one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, being an elephant handler or a caretaker, right? Um, in Thailand, just last year, in the district that I was working in, it's called Sukhothai. In a year,
Oh, where'd you go? What happened to Chrissy? Um, I am going to message her. Bear with me. See if she can. Let's see if she gets back in the link. Um, so while I wait for her to get back in, here she comes. Um, she's coming. Um, Connie English works and volunteers at, I believe it's Boone Lot, and she is the one that met Chrissy Pratt and invited. She's trying to get in and introduced us. Okay, she's ready to come back on. So I had just recently been in touch with Connie English, and she's like, "Hey, long time no talk. I don't think I've talked to Connie in about 10 years." And she's like, "Great work you're doing, and um, I need to put you in touch with Chrissy." So here, Chrissy, I'm bringing you back on.
okay.
Okay. So was that your internet, not mine?
It must have been. Yeah,
Okay.
I was talking and then it just cut right out. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. I'm good at impromptu. Take it
Yeah.
from here. I was like, I don't know anything about elephants, so I don't know what I'm going to talk about. But
Well, I
okay,
believe we were saying that it's a very dangerous job.
yeah.
So, um, a lot of times, mahouts, which is the term for like a traditional elephant caretaker, they are um, kind of villainized for their mistreatment of the elephants. But what people don't understand is that there is a reason for this, right? They're not just these evil people. Uh, because elephants can be so dangerous, they can't really afford to give them much freedom of choice, right? The elephant can't really be allowed to disobey or make mistakes or um, kind of show any excitable emotion. We just can't do it because it's too dangerous. And that is why there is a lot of punishment used in traditional elephant training. If any of that stuff starts happening, the trainer or the mahout needs to make it stop and stop right away. So that elephant learns from a very young age that the human is dominant and that any disobedience is going to result in a really painful consequence. And so, if anybody's heard about the breaking process,
Mhm.
that's what that is. You know, it's done when the elephant is young. Traditionally, it was 3 to 5 years. Unfortunately, it's being done earlier and earlier now, and that involves, separating the calf from its mother, right? They want the calf to not have the safety and security and protection of its mother. They want that to come from the human now, right? And
Can I
so,
ask you a question real quick?
yes,
So, when they're separating the calf from its mother, is this in the wild? Is this under human care? Is the calf
right.
born under human?
So, traditionally, it was done in the wild. A lot of times you will hear the term domesticated elephant, but it actually doesn't exist, right?
Mhm.
Domestication means that humans have selectively bred a species for hundreds of years, right? And that actually hasn't been done with elephants. Traditionally, they would capture them from the wild rather than intentionally breed for either physical characteristics or personality traits. Nowadays, that is happening a lot more as there's, captive breeding. But this is within the past 20 or 30 years, right? Which is a drop in the bucket compared to like a dog or a horse. Um, so, yeah, to answer your question, nowadays it happens in captivity.
Okay. Okay. And they're separating the calf from its mother,
Right.
getting the calf very dependent on humans.
Right. And they sort of trick that calf psychologically, right, into believing that the human is dominant. Any disobedience will result in pain. And then that elephant kind of operates under that conditioning for the rest of its life,
Which
uh,
is how long? What is the lifespan?
which is on average 60 to 70 years. Yeah.
So these mahouts are often growing with the elephant.
Well, traditionally, yes, but again, things are changing a lot. So this is another thing that we're having to deal with is, you know, traditionally the position of mahout was considered a very revered position, right? And it was very connected to spirituality, even. But nowadays, a mahout is seen as like the lowest of the lowest position societally, right?
Okay.
So even like garbage collectors uh, are considered to be a higher position than an elephant caretaker. So that's another thing that we're dealing with is
And why is that? Because the history of how
right,
the animals
right.
are treated?
Everything's just changed so much. And
Okay.
mahouts nowadays are doing it mostly because they don't have other opportunities, right? So they're usually uneducated, and uh, maybe don't have a lot of other options. So they're not necessarily there because they love their elephant so much. Whereas before, um, most elephant owners were the mahouts, right? So it's their elephant. It was part of the family. Um, they were seen as a very valuable part of the family. Whereas now, Mahouts are usually hired by rich elephant owners, right? So this isn't even really their elephant. They're just kind of hired to take care of the elephant. And they don't necessarily have the years of knowledge and experience that they would have back in the day, because it was passed on from generation to generation, fathers teaching their sons. And
So, individual families and people own these elephants, or is it organizations?
right. Well, so back in the day, it used to be that. And then that still happens to some extent over in Asia, right? Elephants can be privately owned. But nowadays, when people have an elephant, they're not using it in the ways that they would traditionally, right? Elephants traditionally were used for manual labor, for transport. Um, they provided a very valuable service, and now those jobs are kind of obsolete, right? So that's why the elephant tourism industry has kind of exploded
Oh,
within the past 15 to 20 years, because that's one of the only ways people can make money, um, which they need to do because keeping an elephant is really expensive, right?
yeah, yeah,
They eat 200 to 300 pounds of food every single day, so that alone is a huge expense.
sure.
And back in the day, there was lots of forests, right? They could just kind of let their elephant go out there and find food. But now, places in Asia, India, um, our population has exploded, right? So there really just isn't the space that elephants need in order
Use
to survive. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I was, understanding that from your TED Talk,
right.
that, a lot of these animals are older, a lot of these elephants are older. You were explaining why they can't be returned to the wild. There's little wild left to return to.
Right, right.
Can you
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about that?
yeah, that's the irony of the work that we do. Maybe you'll agree with me, but I know I'm not alone. A lot of my colleagues feel the same way. I have made a career out of working with captive animals, but to tell you the truth, if I could wave a magic wand and there were no captive animals, I would do it in a heartbeat. And that would put me right out of work, but that would be worth it. But I chose to do this, as I think you did too, from reading all your information, is these animals are in captivity, right? And unfortunately, the reality is, for the time being anyway, they're going to be in captivity. And with elephants, specifically Asian elephants, they're an endangered species. A lot of people think that that's because of ivory poaching, and that plays a big role. But the biggest role by far is habitat loss and destruction, right? Um, Elephants need lots of space to live. They travel, they migrate, right? Um, and humans, we put our towns, we put our railroad tracks, we put everything, our plantations, so there really just isn't enough space. If we were to release all the captive elephants tomorrow, it would just be disaster, because there isn't enough land for them to survive.
Mm, mm. Yep, it's this ever evolving, just
Right,
like
right.
a no-win situation. But
Yeah, except that it doesn't have to be one extreme or the other, right? Some people will say, okay, either it's evil to keep them in captivity. We need to let them all go, right? And there are other people who would argue it's good to keep them in captivity, um, and who cares about the environment, right? But there's all this room in between, right? They're in captivity for now, but that doesn't mean we continue to treat them the way that we have traditionally, right? There are ways that we can do things to make it so that captivity isn't horrible for them, right? We can make it
Which is
good
where
for them.
you come in.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, so let's go into because we've got some questions, but I'll I'll just ask you and incorporate them into what I'm asking you.
Mhm.
So you go in. Are how are you met by the mahouts? Are they welcoming you?
Right. Well, typically, no. They don't really want me there. Um, they're usually polite, right? But they typically assume that I am, when they think of Westerners, Western foreigners, they think of us as loving elephants, but not understanding that elephants can be dangerous, right? Um, so in the beginning, they kind of treat me with kid gloves and they kind of assume that I don't know really what I'm doing, right? So they'll kind of humor me in the beginning. When we really start having problems, believe it or not, is actually when we start having success, right? There'll be this short period of time. I don't want to say that it's got to be hard, right? I know that I would feel this way, right? If this were my career, if this were my job,
They feel
and
threatened.
yes, I would feel threatened, and so they feel threatened. Yeah. So that's kind of a delicate time, right? When I first started, I kind of when it, I was maybe somewhat competitive, I would be like, bam, how you like them apples, right? You said this elephant would never do this and I got him to do it, kind of thing. And as fun as that was in the moment, that's not a good way to handle it, right? um, I have found that, yeah, the more we can draw them in and get them to be a part of this, they're using operant conditioning and positive reinforcement too. They are. Um, they have relationships with their elephants. But working in this way, the relationship is a little bit different, right? So that's what you're kind of teaching them is in this situation, we actually give the elephant a choice. The elephant is allowed to fail. If you take a look at this picture here, pretty much in all the pictures you've seen of me, there is this barrier in between the trainer and the elephant. And we call this protected contact. And it's just a style of management where there is a barrier in between. And this kind of changes everything, right? With this barrier there, this particular elephant in this picture was quite aggressive, right? And so he was using a lot of physical force with her, not because he's mean. He needs to keep himself safe, right? And everybody around him safe. But
Sure.
when we put this barrier here, we can really allow her to react in whatever way she feels is necessary, right? If she's angry, she can be angry. And she would push on these kind of flimsy wooden poles, and it
Is
it
that what
was kind of scary. Yeah.
is that what she's doing? Or is she
No, she's actually participating right now. But do you see how the poles are all kind of uneven? Like that middle bar is pushed up a little bit. She had gotten angry earlier, and she had put her trunk underneath that and lifted that. Yeah.
Mhm.
And what we can do is kind of, because initially we're safe, right? Like she's angry, but that barrier is there. I just kind of put myself where I'm safe and I don't do anything. I don't react at all. You just basically kind of ignore any of that unwanted behavior. And then when we see that calm, cooperative behavior, you reward that, right? So over time, we see more and more of the behavior that we want and less of that unwanted behavior. So she learns in this situation, okay, I can get angry. I can do these things. Nothing bad's going to happen, but nothing really fun is going to happen either. If I want the good stuff to happen, then this is what I need to do. Yeah.
Okay. And do you use more than just food as reinforcers?
Yes, this gets a little bit complicated. I think maybe if I were able to spend more time, then I might work harder at establishing stronger secondary reinforcers, like tactile, um, toys, things like that. Uh, Most of the time, when I'm in Thailand, especially, these elephants are working in tourism. And right now, we've made a lot of progress. There's not nearly as much elephant riding as there used to be, but there are a lot of places where guests will come. They've chosen not to ride, which is great, but they want to touch the elephants. They want to feed the elephants. They want to, have that selfie with the elephant right there. And what these people don't understand is that unfortunately, the elephant still needs to be under complete control when you're doing that, right? The elephant still can't be allowed to express themselves freely or get angry or upset. Everybody always asks me, do the elephants like it when we touch them? And the answer is, we will never know, right? Because that elephant is not allowed to tell us that they don't like it, right? Um, and when you put them in a situation where they can tell us, 9 times out of 10, they they don't really want it, right?
So when offered the choice, and are they
Right.
offered the choice, will they walk away from the touch?
Yeah, it's particularly with strangers, right? They're a lot like us. If they have known a person and have gotten to know them, then yes, I have seen elephants that really enjoy rubs and pats and scratch downs and things like that.
From the people they
um,
know and
from the
trust.
people they know, exactly. But just like us, that's pleasant when it's from somebody you know. But if a stranger were to come up to you and start touching your face and things, it's not very pleasant. Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
sure, and I saw you talk about that in your TED Talk as
Right,
well,
right, right. And it's a
offering.
tough one, because it's one of those things where it's a bummer to hear, right? I understand why people want to touch the elephants. They love elephants and they want that connection. I get it. I want it too. That's the whole reason why I became a trainer in the first place. But if you're going to one of these places, you that's the reality, right? That the elephant most likely has learned to tolerate it, but they don't necessarily love being touched by humans. And the
100%.
kindest thing you can do is go to a place that offers observation only. There's these wonderful organizations, Boonlots being one of my personal favorites, where your activity is you go out into the forest and you're kind of tracking elephants, and you go and you find them and you stand back and you just watch them doing their thing. That's when they have the space and the opportunity just to be an elephant and not really have to worry about um, doing things for us humans. Yeah,
Pleasing us. Yeah,
right.
I
But
love
even those elephants at Boone Lots, right? We need to be able to take care of their feet. We need to be able to get a blood draw. We need to be able to help them when they're sick, right? So even though they're not dealing with tourists necessarily, we still need their cooperation from time to time. And even those elephants, they have mahouts that stay with them. And those mahouts have developed really good relationships, really strong relationships. But the mahout still has to be able to manage that elephant, right? The sanctuary is located right next to a village. There are people who have farmland right nearby. So those mahouts still can't really just let that elephant do whatever it wants. So we can give the elephant a lot more freedom. But if that elephant goes and starts eating somebody's rice fields or is taken off into the village, the mahout does have to be able to tell that elephant no, right? So it's tricky.
so these elephants, they're able to get on other people's property?
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. So
there is no fencing?
nope. Fencing strong enough to contain an elephant is horrendously expensive, right? At Busch Gardens, we called our elephant area the Pachyderm Palace because it was like a multi-million-dollar facility. So some of these smaller places in Asia, there's just no way they would be able to afford that, and it's not very practical, right? The the land itself is the dirt is soft, right? It's a wet, temperate climate. It's rainforest. So even building the pole structures, uh, if an elephant just pushes on that a little bit, it can just come down quite easily. So unfortunately, there are some places that have found a way to do fencing, but it's hard.
And
Uh,
this is why the mahouts have to stay with them?
yes, yeah,
So they're staying with
exactly.
them round the clock?
Right. Yes. Well, at night, they the elephants typically in the good sanctuaries, they'll have like they call them chain-free enclosures. So, for instance, at Boon Lots, which is a very uh, they have very high standards of elephant welfare there. It's a good place to support if you're going to Thailand. But they've got electric fencing. And so each elephant has about an acre and a half to 2 acres to kind of walk around. They've dug out a pond in there so they've got some stuff to do. There are other places that have a smaller enclosure, but it's got fencing, so the elephant isn't on a chain overnight. And then there's some places that can't afford those types of enclosures, so the elephant does go on a chain at night. And we have all learned to hate chains, but it's not as easy as just saying, "Okay, get rid of the chain," right? We can't just let the elephants go at night. There's houses and vehicles and farmland and children and all that just right nearby.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've got about 15 minutes left, so I'd
Okay.
like to dive in a little bit more into the work you do.
Sure. Yes.
So we have a couple people asking about, how do you read their behavior, their body language?
Well, that's a really good question. So, there is some general elephant body language, right? That some of you have probably seen. Um, when they are relaxed and happy, we typically see like the ears gently flapping. They're doing things, they're quite playful. They like to throw dirt and mud over themselves. This is their sunscreen and their bug repellent, but that's usually a sign that they're kind of relaxed, right? When they're being kind of playful like that. They love swimming. So, we can kind of see when they're happy. When they are excited or upset, the behavior is very much the same, right? The ears come out, straight out to the sides, the eyes kind of widen, the tail will lift up. And oftentimes people will say, "Oh, what's happening here?" And if you were to look at the behavior itself, you wouldn't really know, are they really scared or angry about something, or are they really happy, like woohoo, excited about something?
Which one
So
is
you
it?
kind of have to look at the context. Yes, exactly. And then as you get to know each elephant, that's where it gets really interesting. And I'm sure you guys have seen this with all the different animals that you're working with at home. They all have their own little special kind of quirks and tendencies, right? Which is just, this is by far the best part of the job. The part that I love the most is kind of getting to know, oh, okay, I know that this elephant's starting to get frustrated, right? Because he'll do a big, sigh like that. I can kind of tell, or from past experience, like he does this when he's starting to get frustrated. Or I know when the elephant's getting nervous because they're curling their trunk up and putting it in their mouths. So there's these kind of little special things that they do. Um, that you just kind of learn through the training process what they're trying to communicate to you. And a lot of it is just kind of in their eyes as well. You know, some people will say to me like, "Oh, how did you know that that elephant was getting angry?" And it's just there's kind of like when you're talking with a person, they might not be shouting or yelling or anything, but you can just tell by looking at their face and looking in
You
their eyes.
you
And
gotta
that's
get to
again
know
just something that
them.
comes with experience. You know, when I first started, I was quite frustrated, right? I was asking my coworkers and my mentors, like, you know,
Let me
what am
let
I
my
missing here?
I'm gonna let my dog into
Okay,
the room
okay.
real quick.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I was asking them, you know, what am I missing? And they just said, relax, Chrissy. You'll see it. You'll see it soon enough. And sure enough, they were correct, right? It is kind of like it just clicks one day. I'm like, oh, I see it. The different facial expressions and everything. Yeah.
Sure. So a lot of behavior is contextual. What does that
Of
mean?
course, right, exactly. And then, of course, you know, I find elephants, a lot of people will ask me if I felt like dolphins or elephants were harder. And I usually will say I find elephants much more difficult. Um, and that's because, you know, in the marine mammal industry, we used all positive reinforcement. Um, and traditionally, it's always been that way because you really can't make a dolphin do anything, right? They will just swim away from you. You're in their world, right? You can't physically make them do anything. It all had to be voluntary. So you know, when you I was learning and when you're training, all these dolphins just have a history of working with positive reinforcement. Whereas with the elephants, you're meeting them and they have a 50, 60-year history of working under those traditional conditions, right? So a lot of them do have some pretty sticky behavioral issues, and that can be
Due
um,
to past experience.
yes, exactly, exactly. So, for instance, that elephant who I was telling you about who was aggressive, she's not a mean elephant, but if you think about it, when animals are faced with a threat, fight or flight comes into play. And for all this time, the option to flee has been removed, right? She's not allowed to do that. So, fight was her default. You know, so she just would kind of automatically go into aggression. So it took a really long time to get her to understand that that wasn't necessary in this scenario, right? um
And isn't it neat to
yes,
see them say, "You have a choice. You can
yes,
walk
yes,
away."
it really
You
is.
you
Yeah,
and them walking away is telling you,
right,
"I'm not comfortable with this."
exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even the elephant in this picture here, she, you know, had an old there's a break in her ankle from forced breeding in her past. So she had a lot of fear and anxiety. So she would just kind of really turn in on herself when she got nervous, right? Her eyes would literally kind of glaze over and she would shut down emotionally, physically, everything, right? It's a coping mechanism. She would go into some type of like freeze response where she would just stop doing anything. So she wasn't aggressive. She's not necessarily giving you any behavioral signs, but she's also not responding to me in any way. She's looking at me, but almost kind of right through me. So, you know, that took a lot of time and a lot of